Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you
Chase
show up.
Thorne,
Yeah, I mean, I got him at
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, all right. Welcome into Operation Domination, your favorite fantasy football podcast you can find on any app that you listen to. And also make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Sports YouTube channel. You go to @FFAdviceNet. I'm Dan Mater, joined with Chase Thorne and Adam LaRue. We have a Superflex Best Ball mock draft for you. We are at the end of July. August is around the corner. The Hall of Fame game is tomorrow. We're recording on Wednesday night. Cannot wait. And let's get a chance here to talk about some draft strategy in best ball. And I know people like to draft best ball early, right? We talk about that every single year because you want to try to get some values. ADP maybe hasn't quite caught up yet. But as Adam and Chase and I have kind of discussed, this has probably been one of the best years for ADP. So I haven't felt that way. So when I do my best ball drafts, I've done a few, but I'm actually waiting until August to do a number more. So we'll get a chance to get in some strategy and all that and more. So remember, this is a super flex best ball mock draft here. Underdog style, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, not a tight end premium, 2 running backs and a flex position. And yes, there even is a defense. We'll see how many picks we can get through within 52 minutes. So let's go ahead and get this puppy started with Adam LaRue on the clock at the number 1 pick. And what is Adam going to do? Josh Allen. Well, who would have thunk it?
Yeah, not a whole lot of room for creativity picking from the top, admittedly. I don't necessarily love picking from the top in best ball. I think you have a lot more options, especially to get combinations of players when you get turns and get towards the back end. But can't be mad at having one of the most consistent quarterbacks the last few years.
No, you can't. I mean, I don't think anybody has more number 1 overall finishes than Josh Allen over the past, I think, 8 years it is now. Just because, look, you're getting rushing touchdowns, rushing yards. The guy's still throwing for over 4,000 yards on top of it. He's the perfect unicorn. So you can't argue with that with a number 1 pick in a super flex league. And then thankfully, because Bijan Robinson went number 104 and Jamar Chase went 5, I got my hands on Jalen Hurts, who I still have as a top 3 quarterback myself. Guys, the tush push is here to stay. It's 2 years in a row now. The Eagles have defeated the vote. It's not going anywhere. And as long as the tush push is there, well, guess what? Jalen Hurts is getting double-digit rushing touchdowns. I'm not turning that down with my first round pick if he's available to me in the middle of the first round. Now, Chase, he's picking towards the back end of the first. I'm going to love to see where he goes at this point. Can you get a little bit creative? Can you go a little away from quarterback? Are you going to try to roll that dice and play it late? Or are you just going to stick to the strategy? Let's see. He's still deciding.
No, I'm hoping against hope that he'd make it back around, but he did not.
Oh, try to be slick. So you took CD Lamb in your first round pick here. Let's see what you do here on the number 2 second round. And then you talk me through the thought process that you were trying to go for when you took CD Lamb with that number 1 pick.
Yeah. I'm picking late enough that, like you just said, Hurts is gone. The top 4, the rushing guys are all gone. The top rusher guys are all gone. So now it's down to passing quarterbacks. And then Burrow went right after you. So I was like, okay, there's not anybody that I really feel super strong about. So I can try and zig when everybody else zags. It means that I'm probably going to have to hit quarterback a little heavier than I want to. I probably would have to go for 4 quarterbacks rather than just 3. But since Bowers is gone, I'm going to take my buddy Trey. I would have felt like I was cheating on Trey anyway if I'd have taken Bowers, but Bowers would have been the pick had he been there.
So, all right, so doubling down those. You go CD Lamb, you go Trey McBride. Again, this is not a tight end premium leagues. You're taking him in the second round, forfeiting a quarterback again. So why Trey McBride there in the second round after losing out on Bowers at the turn?
Honestly, I feel like by the time the quarterbacks come back around, I won't be losing out on a ton of value compared to what I would have been getting there anyway. at either one of those. I know with CeeDee Lamb, first off, he's going to get a ton of targets. He's a target monster. And if Dak Prescott can stay healthy, which is an if, but I expect big things out of CeeDee Lamb again. But then coming back around, you mentioned it's not tight end premium, but because it's not tight end premium, there's only about 3 dudes I want. And since I'm not going to have an advantage at quarterback with the rushers, I want to have an advantage somewhere. And I believe that Bowers and McBride and Kittle are the 3 tight ends to have. And if you don't have one of them, now you're waiting on tight end. Well, I already know I'm going to have to go heavy on quarterback. I don't want to have to feel pressure to select a 3rd tight end. I want to be able to rely on my top tight end to be my tight end more often than not, if not all the time, except for his bye week. So I'm going to double down there and we'll see what comes back around at QB.
Okay. I don't hate it. So I'm picking in the middle here. And one of the things I do like about the middle is having value fall to you, but I was kind of stuck in a catch 22. What's a good term for, because there's 3 guys I was struggling with at the end of the day. I wound up going Christian McCaffrey here with the 206. And remember, this is a best ball league, so you're going to have to shoot for the stars. We know Christian McCaffrey in that system, when he's healthy, has the potential to be the RB1 overall. But I was struggling because since I already have Jalen Hurts, it was very tempting to be like, all right, well, maybe I want to come back with another quarterback and just be already set and dominant at that position. Something I don't typically like to do. I don't like to go super early quarterbacks. I don't want to miss out on all the best players at running back and wide receiver position, knowing I'm picking in the middle of the 3rd round. And then the other hand on the other side was that, well, A.J. Brown's sitting there. I knew he probably was not going to make his way back to me. That's my opportunity for the top stack to be able to go with. And, Adam made sure he didn't get back to me in the 3rd round. We'll talk to him in a second. But that's why ultimately, you know what? I'm going to go with a guy who I know if the cards fall right in a best ball league, he could be the number 1 in his spot, especially with a betting best ball. You can draft these wide receivers later on. You can take multiple wide receivers and just look for the hits. It's hard to do that at running back. So I'd rather get that running back early and then maybe go receiver later on. Adam, then we get back to him. Now, remember, he had the 101. He had Josh Allen first. So he gets the 2-3 turn. He went double wide receiver. So he went Drake London and A.J. Brown. Walk me through that, Adam.
Yeah, I liked the upside with both. With Drake London, I mean, we saw what he was once Penix got the starts, especially to close out the season. Those last 2 games were fantastic for Drake London. So I'm really excited about what he can be in a full season with the new quarterback situation. And with A.J. Brown, obviously had some injury issues last year. I think he is of our current star wide receivers in the league, I think he's the one that benefits the most from best ball. I think that when you think of most of the star wide receivers, regardless of format, you love them. And A.J. Brown is one where it's like, he can probably average out to being like somewhere in the wide receiver 2 range. Of course, this past year it was because of injury, but it's within the cards that happens regardless. But he's going to have pop games. That's just who A.J. Brown is. It's who he will continue to be, I think. So he's someone who I think in this format I really, really value. I think getting him top of the 3rd, I feel really confident about. And wide receiver is now a strength for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Drake London, A.J. Brown, Darnell Mooney banged up, by the way, and he's going to miss a few weeks. It's even questionable he's going to come in week 1. So that just means more funneling early for Michael Penix and Drake London. Absolutely love that. I decided that when we came back to the 306, I went with Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey represents to me the last wide receiver in my top 12 tier who I feel strongly about being a top 12 receiver this season. Remember, last 8 games of the year, he averaged over 100 yards per game. He was actually the number 1 receiver at the last 8 games of the year, even more so than Jamar Chase in yards average. And I've talked about this before. It's just the Chargers having to throw the ball an average amount of time. It's all it's going to take. And I'm surprised to see, and I was on Tyler Bradley's From the Forum, part of the Fantasy Sports Advice Network show last week when we were doing a mock draft. And I was talking about Ladd McConkey, and it seems like there was a couple people there, and I was shocked about this, who feel like his 1,100 yard, 7 touchdown performance last season is not replicable for him. Like they think that's the ceiling. I don't get why. The guy only had 114 targets. To me, and I've said this since he was coming out in college, he's Cooper Kupp reincarnated. This is somebody that if they throw the ball consistent enough amount of times, which is what we need him to do from week 6 on, he's easily 140 to 150 target type of player. That I don't believe his rookie year was his ceiling. I don't don't see why he can't improve upon what he did. And because of the separation that he gets, he's not your typical inside out receiver who doesn't get targeted in the red zone. He's going to be a red zone monster because he's going to get separation, period. And that's just as effective as having a big body when you get inside close. So I look at McConkey. He's my wide receiver 11. To me, he's that last tier because I can have a debate between wide receiver 12 and wide receiver 18. Who's going to finish in that area? That's the last guy in my tier there. So I decided to go with Ladd McConkey. Chase is still on the clock. I think we have a pooper scooper in his brain trying to figure out what
I was listening to you talk about Ladd McConkey. I don't know if he's 140, 150 target kind of guy with everybody else that they're going to have in that offense, but I do like the pick.
I like Trey Harris, but he's a rookie. You have Ramondre Gatson and Tyler Conklin with a power running game. Who's everybody else? Quentin Johnson has already come out and is dropping everything in sight in training camp, picking up where he left off.
140 targets that's a high bar. It's a high bar. But I like the pick. I'm going to grab my guy here.
Oh, Josh Jacobs. He had to grab a Packer. Of course he had to grab a Packer.
Yeah, and he was the top running back left on the board, and I think that offense goes through him. I don't think it's a majority passing offense, or at least I don't think it's as highly stressed passing offense as I think the rest of the community probably thinks it is. I think that offense is going to run through him literally and figuratively. And so I like that. And now I've got a pretty good floor here with my top wide receiver, my top running back. I feel pretty good about them week in and week out, about them landing in the, as a starter each week. And so now I can concentrate on where I'm weak, literally. But we're going to
Yeah, I want to throw your way there. So they definitely went behind. If Josh Jacobs was the focus of the offense last season, absolutely no doubt about it. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that Jordan Love for most of the year was not 100% healthy. He comes into this season healthy. They invested another first round wide receiver into the bunch here. Do you not think that maybe they're going to try to make that transition to the guy they paid $55 million to at the quarterback position, or no?
So much the better if they do throw with him, because they've got a good offensive line and Jacobs is going to eat. He's going to eat. And if they throw a bunch and they get up big, they're going to hand it to that dude and let him put people away. I'm not worried about Josh Jacobs this year, regardless of how well or how poorly Jordan Love does. They have a good offensive line. They're going to open holes for that dude. Marshawn Lloyd's already banged up again, and they don't really have anybody behind him. It's Josh Jacobs' show there.
I wanted to mention the fact that Marshawn Lloyd was already banged up, because that's a big one. People thought maybe they would steal some work.
Yep.
So you finish out. You go with on the turnaround there in the fourth round. You go with Kyler Murray, one of the last rushing quarterbacks left. Go ahead. So I skipped over Justin Herbert, like we said. I mean, I like Justin Herbert. I like him as possibly the number 2 pocket guy behind Burrow. But when I had to wait this long to take my first one, I want to have that rushing upside. And so I will take a shot with Kyler Murray. Plus it gives me that easy stack. I already took McBride, so now I've got an easy pairing there. And we'll see what happens later on down the line with him. But I feel good about that gamble, and I can find something else for my QB2 later. All right. Like that. I was hoping Justin Herbert was going to fall on me, so I get the late Ladd McConkey and Herbert stack. Didn't quite work out that way. So I decided to pivot with Garrett Wilson, who is my wide receiver 12. So I just got my wide receiver 11 and wide receiver 12 on my board. And look, Justin Fields, inconsistent as a passer. Do I expect that to change? Absolutely not. But what I will get is pop games. Garrett Wilson, number 1 target without a doubt. I mean, you have Allen Lazard reportedly falling down the depth chart right now. You want to talk about no other targets to go to. And as long as Fields is one guy, we saw DJ Moore have his best fantasy season ever in his career with just Justin Fields. And Garrett Wilson, that is, he has somebody who he already has chemistry with going back to college. I expect a big season, a big volume season with some spike weeks here out of Garrett Wilson. So excited to get him as my second wide receiver. Adam, we get back to you. You decide to go Caleb Williams there in the 4th round, and then back that up with Sam Laporta taking your first tight end off the board. Walk me through that.
Yeah, with Caleb, I was actually originally planning on waiting a little bit longer at quarterback, but the value felt really good. He's someone who I think quietly was pretty solid as a runner last year. He just didn't get in the end zone, so it didn't pop up, as far as fantasy people are concerned. But I really struggle to believe that the 6 yards per carry, just under 500 yards, isn't going to translate to rushing touchdowns once you operate that within a functional offense, and specifically a functional offense where your OC has done a really good job at figuring out how to limit turnovers, how to be efficient in the red zone. So I think that's an area that could be really valuable. And we've seen clearly with Josh Allen, who I took number 1, that rushing touchdowns can mean quite a bit, regardless of format for quarterbacks, but especially in Superflex. And then Sam Laporta, to me, once you get past Laporta, there's a very clear drop off at the tight end position. I mean, it is, to me, like I view the position as there's the top 3, there's Laporta kind of just sitting there all on his own, and then there's the rest. And so for me, Laporta was, it just felt like I'm grabbing the last kind of guy that I feel really comfortable at the tight end position, because I think the rest of it, you're playing with fire.
Don't disagree. The rest of it, you're playing with a lot of ups and downs right now. So I don't disagree with that. I think he is the last tier break before you get to the other tight ends that maybe you want to wait on. Fast forward to my pick. We're now in the 5th round, right in the middle here. And I decided to go with TreVeyon Henderson. Is he the highest ranked player on my board at this point? No, he is not. But thinking of it being best ball, thinking of pop weeks, thinking about guys in the second half of the season, we get in the championship weeks of people who can have the ability to pop, I look at TreVeyon Henderson in that light. So first of all, Ramondre Stevenson might be one fumble away from never even seeing the field again anyway. And I think there's actually a decent chance, a bare minimum, this is a committee week 1. I would not be surprised if by the time we get done camp, because of his explosive ability compared to Ramondre Stevenson, that he's not the lead back heading into week 1. But even if he's not, I do know he's going to be the guy who's catching the ball more times than not. And a Josh McDaniels offense that features getting the ball to the running back in the passing game. And he's got the big explosive ability, so I'm going to get those big games. I still feel like because I have Ladd McConkey and Garrett Wilson, I can wait at wide receiver, and I'm going to play the long game here before I start to check off my second quarterback. So that was my line of thinking in that process. If anyone wants to throw me a caveat, you can, but right now Chase is on the clock.
I like Henderson better than the guy that went 2 guys after him and Mixon there. So that's a good pick. I got sniped on James Conner, or he would have been the pick here too, because that would have given me a nice stack there with my Murray McBride double up. But I'm going to go with a little bit of a risk, but I like Ted McMillan, and I've already been kind of a little vocal on the fact that I think Bryce Young has a good year ahead of him. And I think that even if he has a mediocre middle of the pack quarterback type year, that Ted McMillan's going to be a giant part of that. So I'm willing to bet on that. There's not a whole lot of other pass catchers on that roster that I really feel can challenge him to be a top dog like that. So I feel okay taking that. And plus I'm going to be taking about 800 shots at wide receiver here anyway. So now coming back around, somebody made the Adams decision for me, so I don't have to worry about that, which is nice. Not really crazy about anybody else, anybody that's on the board. This is kind of it's kind of a area where you're going to have to make your pick, and you're going to have to make sure that your pick is the right one. You know what I mean? Everybody around here has question marks when you come to this point in the draft, either because of their offense, because of, the quarterback situation, or they have injury history or whatever else. There's a lot of questions that are in this part of the draft here. So with that said, I'm willing to take a shot on a guy that has a lot of upside, but I'm worried about his quarterback. I'll take DK Metcalf.
Ooh. Well, we know the volume, again, target funneling. The volume's got to go his way. He's the epitome of a big play type of wide receiver. It's just how many of those big games you're going to get. I mean, even with Geno Smith, who at this point, compared to Aaron Rodgers at his point in his career, it has to be equal to, if not a better quarterback, had not really put up as many big games we would have liked to have seen lately. So DK Metcalf, you decided to go that way. What was the tiebreaker for you?
Well, like you said, target funnel. I think he's got a chance to be Rodgers' favorite. Rodgers tends to favor his favorites, and no pun intended there. I mean, obviously. But I'm not crazy about buying into an Arthur Smith offense on any count, but I'm willing to take a chance that the Rodgers factor overrides Arthur Smith's play calls 5 times out of 6. So I'll go with Metcalf and move on and hope that he has just enough weeks to offset Tet McMillan and get me a number 2 receiver every week.
We don't trust Arthur Smith. I know that, but they paid him a lot. There's one guy really to go to the ball to. I mean, I got to at least think the floor is higher. I got to think some more big plays are headed his way. It is all going to come down to Aaron Rodgers. But I look at this, like, even if the big plays aren't necessarily there, your hope is that Rodgers goes to him in the red zone like he would go to Davante Adams and just throw it up and for him to go get it. Like, touchdowns could be a plenty if they really play their cards right here. But yeah, so fast forward, we get to the 6th round, middle of pick, and I went with Dak Prescott, and I'm giddy to get him in the 6th round in a Superflex league here. We basically want 2 quarterbacks. Every time the guy's healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback. Am I running the risk of him maybe not being healthy? Sure. But at the same time, I'm going to take that chance. I took the chance with Christian McCaffrey. We're looking to shoot for the stars here. I know if he's going to be out there with a team that is actually starting to tell me that Miles Sanders is ahead in the camp battle, yeah, that just means you have no running game, period. It's going to be all on Dak Prescott's shoulders, and he has an extra weapon to do it with this season. Yeah, I'm all about Dak Prescott getting a return to the top 10. I think he's heavily undervalued in pretty much any format right now, best ball, redraft, anything. So I'm glad to get him here in the 6th round to get that upside at the 2nd quarterback position. Adam, we get to you in the back end of the 6th, and then you kick us off again on the turn. You with Isaiah Pacheco and DeAndre Swift. I'm going to be really interested to see your thought process here with Pacheco and Swift.
Yeah, I felt like I played it pretty safe up towards the top with my wide receivers, quarterbacks, and with Laporta, and this is where I wanted to start taking my shots. This isn't the best spot to be taking running backs. I just felt the board led me to the other places early on. And these were the guys who I felt like had the best shot to outperform where I'm drafting them. So Montgomery felt like a safer pick, potentially, for example. Caleb Johnson, potentially a safer pick. But Pacheco, in the world where he comes back healthy, I think he's a really big part of that offense. If he looks like what he was the beginning of last season prior to being hurt, or in the previous season, that version of Pacheco significantly outperforms the 6th round. I think that, if we see the efficiency of Swift that we saw the last time he was in a Ben Johnson system, that significantly outperforms the beginning of the 7th round. Of that version of DeAndre Swift obviously struggled to stay healthy. So there needs to be some balance there. But right now, I do peg him to have the best chance to win that backfield. Obviously, I do have Caleb, and Swift is a guy who 50-plus targets is no problem from the running back position. So it felt like one where you do actually get some of that value. You don't always get the value from the running back pairing him with the quarterback, but in this situation, I think you do to a degree, especially because with Swift, he's a big play touchdown scorer. It's not like a running back like a Jonathan Taylor or a Derrick Henry, where your quarterback is actively taking away your rushing touchdowns. They get touchdowns different ways. I don't think that they conflate with one another at all.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that part of it. There is times where there is a nice little stack that you can do a quarterback and running back. That's one of the few ones. As much as everybody's so tentative on DeAndre Swift, the role's there. Like, it's not going to go to anybody else. It's not going to go to Roshan as far as that role anyway. So you could be as cautious as you want to. The fact is, the proof's in the pudding. That's where the ball is going to go most of the time. The Pacheco thing, man, I think that's early for me, especially in best ball, considering everybody, it seems to be the committee. Like, you had Kareem Hunt getting first team reps. You had Elijah Mitchell getting first team reps. You had Brashard Smith, maybe not as much at running back, but also on the first team reps, getting in there as practice as well. Like, this just might be a full blown committee. And with Pacheco, we got to see if he can regain some of his explosiveness. That was an injury that can take that away. So that's just my devil's advocate to you. I don't do a rebuttal to that.
No, I don't disagree at all. I think I took a risk based on it being a tough position running back wise. And when you go heavy and early at other positions early on, you can just kind of have to take a larger volume of swings late to kind of counteract that. And I felt the value was in taking swings rather than with going safer picks, like I mentioned in Montgomery and Caleb.
That's fair. So we fast forward now, we go to the 7th round, and I really wanted to lock in a big playability wide receiver. And this guy's been maddening for the last 2 years, 100%. Jalen Waddle, and not necessarily just based on performance, but injuries. And I'm not even talking about the injuries where he misses games. I'm talking about those injuries where he gets knocked out for 2 quarters, comes back in the 4th after missing like the 2nd and 3rd quarter, and just drives you absolutely nuts. I get it. But I'm making a bet here that this is the year Tyreek Hill falls off the cliff. Jonnu Smith's gone. Tyreek Hill, there's a lot of bad vibes as far as the locker room is concerned. We already know that based on the press conferences of both him and Tua Tagovailoa. We saw decline. I mentioned this before. The wrist injury doesn't make you run slower. We saw decline from Tyreek Hill a season ago. If that continues, which he is at the age cliff, for that to continue with Jonnu gone, well, now all of a sudden the targets start to get funneled towards Jaylen Waddle's way. We know he's explosive. We know the talent is there. If it gets funneled his way, I'm going to take the shot that he's going to have some more big games than not. So that's why I decided to go to the 7th round. Plus the wide receivers in that territory. Like, I was battling between him and Chris Olave, who went in the next pick.
Yeah, no, I was honestly shocked you didn't go with Olave, because you yourself have been vocal about your optimism for Olave if he can stay healthy this season. And if you're going to take a big shot at this point in the draft, I'd rather go with Olave, because I was already scared about hitching my wide receiver wagon to Dak Prescott. Well, now you've got a 2-horse team pulling your wagon, and Dak Prescott and Jalen Waddle is relying on the health of Tua Tagovailoa. I'm shocked you didn't take Olave there. You have come back on that?
I'm going to walk you through why, Chase. Two things. One, I'd rather have Chris Olave in redraft leagues because I like him as a floor player at his value. Best ball, I don't love the ceiling. When I'm seeing guys like Jake Haener actually getting first team reps today, because that's like they literally have a 3 quarterback carousel battle and they all suck. It's hard for me to imagine an offense that it's going to be either them or Cleveland, who score the least amount of points in the NFL, of Chris Olave having too many big games. I think with Waddle, I at least know in the month of September I got a really good shot. We'll see what happens after that, especially, like I said, if Tyreek Hill falls off the cliff. So I think Waddle represents a little bit more upside for those top end games. That was a tiebreaker for me.
Fair point. My pick's been made, even though I haven't made it yet, but here it is right here. I am going to be thrilled to get this guy. I would run to the podium for this one, but Calvin Ridley.
Oh yeah. That was another value pick there too. So go ahead, walk us through that one.
Just again, whatever kind of year Cam Ward's going to have, and we know he's going to be the guy, thanks to Will Levis, slipping on mayonnaise or whatever he did there. Ridley's going to be the guy. It's him and about 876,000 rookies and the rotting carcass shell of Tyler Lockett. So I'm very confident that Calvin Ridley is going to get a boatload of looks this season, and I'll take a shot on that. Like I said, I'm comfortable with my number 1 receiver taking shots here at the late. Why not? Let's go with Ridley.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Look, I have been a guy who's been a bit anti-Calvin Ridley over the past couple of years, and I think for good reason. But this year, with a better quarterback in again, talking about alpha dog situation with what I think is a bad defense still, like, it does line up where Calvin Ridley should be able to. I mean, he had some of the most air yards that couldn't be capitalized because Will Levis just sucks. Cam Ward's better than Will Levis day one. Like, even if Cam Ward's not great, we know he's better than Will Levis. Yeah. We know the ball's going towards Calvin Ridley's way. So I like the value pick there quite a bit. I've had him and Olave kind of hovered in that same tier in redraft best ball. I kind of throw Waddle in there in the mix. They're all kind of around that same grouping. And I would probably, in best ball especially, probably go Waddle, Ridley, Olave.
Yeah. There you go. That's been my point with Ridley too all along, is that I can't believe that the quarterback play doesn't get better, and I can't believe that he isn't the one that sees the bulk of that. I got a little bit of a conundrum here between these two, but we'll take a chance here. We'll take Aaron Jones.
Oh, so I was actually hoping Aaron Jones was going to fall to me. So go ahead.
No, I'm betting on the idea that they want that running back to have some pull in that offense, to take some pressure off of JJ McCarthy. He's a guy that we know can catch passes. He's a guy that we know can run the football. I know Jordan Mason is kind of waiting in the wings there, and that scares me a little bit. We'll see how far he falls, and if I could maybe, not to give away my strategy to the two guys that, are live here against me, but if I could really pick him up later, then I'd feel really great about that pick. And it's my running back too.
Don't disagree. The other thing I was going to add in with Aaron Jones here is that everyone's making a big deal about Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason's a really good running back, and they are going to split time. They are going to take the workload off of it. But what makes me laugh especially as a 49ers fan who had to sit there and watch these games last year, what makes me laugh is the idea that Jordan Mason is automatically the red zone inside the 5 running back. And I think that's funny because Jordan Mason was awful inside the 5 for the San Francisco 49ers. He couldn't convert anything in the red zone. Aaron Jones has been fantastic in that spot throughout his entire career. So this idea that automatically, because he's the bigger back, that Jordan Mason's definitely going to be the red zone guy, I rebuke that idea. I think Aaron Jones isn't going anywhere when you get inside that territory because Jordan Mason hasn't proved he can convert consistently in that territory.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel really good about his usage. I'm not worried about Mason taking over that role. I'm worried if Jones gets hurt that it'll be Mason. And so for that reason, we're going to have to watch the draft and how it plays out here.
Oh man. So this is screwing me up. So I took Cam Scatterbo here. And a big reason why is I want to take guys who have the possibility to have the bigger games and the pop off. So what we're hearing at Giants training camp right now is two really interesting things to me. So it started off like Tyrone Tracy looked like he's definitely going to be the lead back, and Cam Scatterbo is only working on 2-minute drills. And then this past week, there's been a little bit of a flip where you're starting to hear some reports, or at least I did anyway, that Tyrone Tracy doesn't look as explosive as he did a season ago. And Cam Scatterbo is just making plays every single day. Well, already right off the rip, if Cam Scatterbo, you're planning on being your passing down back, Tyrone Tracy was an ex-wide receiver. This isn't a guy you want to pound and ground. So if Scatterbo's already getting that role, who I think is better suited to be inside the tackles, it might be sooner rather than later that we see Cam Scatterbo being the lead in this backfield. And look, he was a big play guy. I've comped him to Austin Eckler. I think there's a real shot he could kind of be that type of player. So, and also we kind of hit that snag in the running backs where once we got past that Scatterbo tier, because I got sniped. I was going to go Tony Pollard, who went to pick right before me. After this, you're pretty much just taking handcuffs. Like your shots in best ball are handcuff running backs essentially at this point. You're not getting any more guys who are getting a assured amount of volume of work, which is why this year with the best ball and the ADP and the way the rankings work out, you got to be conscientious of that. So many people are so used to going wide receiver heavy so early, but the running backs run out really quick for best ball purposes because you're basically just taking lottery tickets at the handcuff position. So I wanted to get one more guy who I knew at least had a set role week 1 that might be able to grow before we fall off into that territory. Go back to Adam. He took Ricky Pearsall and his boy, Khalil Shakir. I'm not surprised at all that Adam took Khalil Shakir. But walk me through those two wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just laid out happened to me, right? I was really hoping that Pollard or a Scatterbo would fall to me because I feel similarly. As much as I loved Tracy coming out, I have a lot of fear about that. I think best case scenario is that they end up in a 1A, 1B because I think the skill sets overlap quite a bit where, maybe you could just drive on, drive off. But it looks concerning if you have Tracy. So Pearsall, I mean, we talked about him, I believe 2 weeks ago in the position battles. He's someone who I feel like of the two major wide receivers for the Niners, he's an upside guy. So for best ball, that's the shot. I think he's a good athlete. He had great hands at Florida. He's someone who, I think another year in the NFL and then like this offense kind of getting back on track can benefit him quite a bit. So it was a shot that I thought I could take. I thought that with the running back kind of getting away from me, taking the two wide receivers does, in theory, finish out my starting lineup. Quote unquote, obviously that's not how best ball works, but at least having guys that I feel comfortable at all the spots. And then Khalil Shakir, not necessarily the most best ball pick of all time, but the sense that he's more of a consistent, not a high upside guy, but he is someone that, being that I've drafted Josh Allen, having those combinations is valuable enough that I figured having someone who is more of a floor than ceiling guy was okay, given that any touchdown that goes to him is getting double counted.
Yeah, no, 100%. You wanted to get with the stack there. And totally agree with the Ricky Pearsall point, by the way. Fast forwarded, I think I screwed him. So all the best ball bros are going to hate my draft. And it's because I tried to get greedy. And this is a lesson to be learned here when you try to get greedy. So I got sniped with Justin Herbert thinking I'd be able to get him in the 4th round. He didn't fall quite as far as I was hoping for. And then I got sniped again in the 9th round thinking Justin Fields would fall to me, and he went 2 picks before me. Because my plan was to bring up Justin Fields, be my 3rd quarterback, have the stack with him and Garrett Wilson. And that's why I was going to attack that angle. Now I'm stuck in this limbo mode where I basically am going to have a redraft team that I hope everybody hits the ceiling. It's not usually how it works, but I don't really have much room to get the stacks that I'm actually going to want here. Maybe I go to attack level later. We'll see what other wide receivers I wound up with. But yeah, this is not how I wanted that to work. So a lesson learned in trying to be greedy. Sometimes it's better just to take your player and set yourself up and see what falls to you afterwards than to try to be too greedy. So instead, I wound up just taking my tight end because I hadn't taken one yet. And I was coming up on another tier drop there. So like Andrews had come off the board. After that, I take David Njoku at the 9-6. So we kind of have like Andrews and Njoku. I kind of have them in the same tier zone where I know there's a certain amount of targets you're going to get. And therefore, you have a floor week-to-week basis. Njoku's proven at this point, look, it may not be the prettiest thing. It may not be a ton of yards, but remember, this is PPR. He gets targeted like crazy no matter who the quarterback, no matter how bad the quarterback is in the Kevin Stefanski system, he gets targeted. He's like the best consistent wide receiver on the Browns, period. So any quarterback they have, the Browns this year, is better than DTR. And Njoku is still able to put up like double-digit targets with him. Doesn't matter who it is. So I'm going with a little bit of consistency. I'm going to draft other tight ends to take shots later, but I'm going to have a guy who I know solidifies at least a floor area for me in this best ball league at the tight end position. Unfortunately, I might lose this draft. But go ahead, Chase. So you're up on the clock.
All right. So I just the way the draft is falling, the way that it's setting up right now, I don't know that I would normally take this guy here, but I'm going to do it. If you've listened to the show the last 2 weeks, or if you've listened to it, since time immemorial, you know that I have a little bit of a higher opinion on this guy this year than everybody else does. Plus, I've already taken his top wide receiver, so I need a second quarterback. I am going to take Bryce Young. I'm going to bet on him.
Don't worry, Chase. Do you have a fan club behind you that thinks Bryce Young? Because all I keep hearing from freaking NFL film guys like, I think Bill Polian was on NFL Sirius XM the other day talking about like he didn't look just like a different quarterback. He looked like a winning quarterback in the NFL. I'm like, oh, good God, here we go.
Well, I'm not gonna say he doesn't. I'm not gonna say Bill Polian's wrong. I mean, he doesn't work in the league anymore, but he did. Plus, I was doing the math. I looked at who Team 12 had. Like I said, watching the draft, following the draft, seeing who I thought might come back around to me. And I was gambling on this. I was betting on this, and it did happen. It came back around. So I am going to take another running back here. I'm going to take Javonte Williams for the Dallas Cowboys and get their starter. I think their unquestioned starter, if he can be healthy, which I feel really good about giving me for a third running back here. It's going to be close to see if Mason would fall to me or not after that. But I've got a starter, a bona fide starter, I believe, as my third running back now. So I'm okay with that turn there with Young and Williams.
Yeah, well, I think if he's healthy, I think he should be the unquestioned starter. There seems to be a question about that now, which just shocks the hell out of me. But I can't wrap my brain around the idea that Miles Sanders has a legitimate shot to start here after just being wept away by Chuba Hubbard and wept away for the last couple of years of being like Carolina. The only reason they didn't cut Miles Sanders sooner was because they owed him too much money in guaranteed money. They didn't actually want him there. They just couldn't justify cutting the guy after what they paid him. So I have a hard time believing that at the end of the day, it's not Javonte Williams. So I don't hate the pick there. All right. So speaking of running backs who are wide receivers, and I'm all over the board here. This is where it gets really interesting, where you really have to kind of play out what your strategy is going to be. So I'm actually going to go with doubling up on the tight end position, and I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid. So told you, I want to make sure I establish the floor at the tight end position, but then I want to come back and take some shots. Kincaid, I know I need Dawson Knox to go away, but everything I'm hearing in camp is that Kincaid has gotten bigger. He's gotten better at blocking. That's really been the problem, right? Because he's been getting taken off the field in too many key situations, a la the red zone, because they had to bring in Dawson Knox to run block. We only have a very small sample size of Dalton Kincaid without Dawson Knox on the field, and it was top 5 tight end worthy. If he can finally overtake it this year and be on the field when we need him to be on the field with a offense we know is going to score a lot of points. I think Kincaid has some upside that we still have yet to see. So I decided to go with Dalton Kincaid in there. And part of it, too, is I was not enthralled with the upside of the running backs and the wide receivers who would be kind of in that territory. We'll see. Adam, he goes back. We go bottom of the 10th round and then top of the 11th. He took Ramondre Stevenson with the 10th and Jaden Blue with the 11th round, doubling up at running back again there. What do you
sniping all of our handcuffs?
Yeah, well, with Ramondre, I really struggle to believe that Travion Henderson is the true workhorse. RB1, sure. The running back that they value the most, sure. But Ramondre is going to maintain a role, I think, in some capacity and potentially still be a guy that gets utilized in the red zone. And I could see him even sneaking in some third downs, just giving the pass blocking prowess. So he's someone who I suspect to still have a role. And I think there's a decent chance the Patriots are very run heavy. Just depending on like how that roster seems to be being built, I would not be shocked. And with Jaden Blue, it saw first team reps today. Obviously, Javonte still figures to be the starter, to be clear, but did see some reps. So it seems like they value him enough that they're at least giving him an opportunity. I think you guys correctly dogged on Miles Sanders pretty heavily. I think that pretending he has any serious shot here is ridiculous. But I think that's, comparing a bad apple for another bad apple. Javonte, who has been... Miles Sanders had one of the worst rushing seasons of the last 20 years. And then Javonte has had one of the worst 2 of the last 5. So it's not like this has been, some incredible run for Javonte. He's just been less bad than Miles Sanders. So I think that this is incredibly open. I think Javonte is likely to have a role, especially in the red zone, especially pass blocking, things of that nature. The veteran starter, taking him above Miles Sanders by a lot. But I think that it is very likely that there's another back that emerges in Dallas. I'm going to take my shot with Jaden Blue.
Yeah, I can't disagree. So it was funny with Jaden Blue. Let's talk about ways, narratives switch in camp. Like camp started out and he was getting dogged by the coaching staff. They're like, oh, he's lazy, he's this. But then if you watch yesterday, the last 2 days, he's gotten first team reps. He's gotten worked in with some of the top units and getting those practice reps in. Someone's got to catch the ball. Javonte Williams is a decent pass blocker. He doesn't do anything with the ball when you throw it to him. Miles Sanders, you can throw him in the same boat. Jaden Blue, by far, just by athletic profiles, is the most explosive running back that they have and is a receiving type running back. We already talked about how we think this is going to be a pass-heavy team, just the way they're built. So, yeah, there's some upside there to be had, and we're kind of in that territory where the running backs, again, you're taking are going to be more on the handcuffy side, who's got the best shot in the right system. I can't disagree with any of that there. So I finally decided, I was like, all right, it's time to come back for my wide receivers, start plugging away. And I got Jaden Higgins, who I have been big on. I'm big on him in Dynasty. I'm big on him in redraft. I'm going to keep saying it again. This offense is built for more than just Nico Collins to eat. We have seen 3 receivers get fed within this offense. I know it was a short period of time because Nico and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell all got hurt at various points, but all 3 receivers could eat, especially 2 wide receivers. Nico Collins and Tank Dell were 2 top 15 wide receivers when they were merging all into the field. Jaden Higgins is a perfect complement to Nico Collins for CJ Stroud, who looks pretty good from all that I understand. But Higgins is coming out. He's already a route running savant as a complement wide receiver. Love him here in the 11th round. And he could be a touchdown guy. This is a big body type of wide receiver who knows how to box out. He did it in Iowa State. I like the pick here at the 11th round. Now we go to Chase, who's up.
Yeah, I would normally go Jake Ferguson here for my tight end too, but speaking of taking shots, I'm going to take a shot. The last shot ever in my entire life with a guy that I think we were happy to declare independence from a few weeks ago. We'll try Kyle Pitts. He's my number 2 tight end. If he doesn't do it this year, he's done, but I don't have to rely on him week in and week out. I can just take that, and now I'm done there. I don't have to worry about my tight end position anymore. And
you declare independence from him, and then 3 weeks later draft him.
Hey,
freedom of drafting Kyle Pitts. Oh, I'm going to take Kyle Pitts here
because I don't need him. It's a luxury kind of pick in theory, because like I said, I'm confident that Trey McBride more often than not is going to be starter. He doesn't share up a bye week with Trey McBride. I'm done at the tight end position. I'm willing to say, like, yeah, there is a scenario where Kyle Pitts ends up finally maybe fulfilling his destiny that we all kind of thought there would be. But I'm done with him if it doesn't happen after this season. Now, Jordan Mason already went, so that takes care of my ability to back up my running back in Aaron Jones there. But there is a guy still on the board who, if some people are correct, is going to get some run this season and actually gives me a 3-way stack there in an offense that I like. And so I am going to go with Mr. Trey Benson there and give myself a possibility of having the starter in Arizona at running back, quarterback, and tight end.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, Trey Benson's getting worked in. Now, we know it's most because they want to keep James Conner fresh, right? But it reinstalls the confidence, because it seemed like there was some confidence wavering. I'm like, are they really going to turn to Benson if something happens to James Conner? I feel more confident about that based on what we've been hearing so far throughout training camp. All right, well, I can't leave this draft. You know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to get greedy again. I'm going to see if I didn't learn my lesson for a third time. I'm going to get greedy again. Because I want to go with J.K. Dobbins here. So we know him and R.J. Harvey are going to be in a committee. J.K. Dobbins, I will never doubt you. I mean, he's like a poor man version of Nick Chubb. Like, everything you think he's out, he finds a way to crawl right back in there, be productive, be the dude. I don't think he's going to be the dude with R.J. Harvey, but I do think this is going to be a prolific backfield where I could easily see R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins both being top 25 type running backs in fantasy football anyway. And I'm going to see spike weeks. And now I'm getting Dobbins as my RB4, all the way back here in the 12th round in a best ball league where I don't have to worry about, what weeks to play him anyway. So I'm going to take Dobbins there. I actually feel pretty good about that pick. So Adam, I love the pick, Adam, because that's kind of where I was struggling, buddy. I was kind of struggling with that guy being what's going on right now. So I'll let you make your next pick there in the 13th round before I kick it all the way to you, because I can see the steam coming off your head as we speak, trying to make this next pick. Chase, real quick, what do you think of the Dobbins pick?
I love it. Like I said, I wish I knew how to quit you, JK. I love him so much. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Listen, they're going to run RJ Harvey, but I think Dobbins is going to get some run too. RJ Harvey is a great bet. As a rookie running back, we like to bet on rookie running backs in fantasy football. I know that the guy can receive. I know that he can play the position, but J.K. Dobbins did not look washed last season. I know that later in the season, his explosiveness maybe wasn't there, but he was coming back last season. I think this season, J.K. Dobbins can return to some semblance of what we think J.K. Dobbins has been and should be. I really like that pick, and I agree with you that LaRue is going to have a fun time talking about his 2 picks here.
Yeah, I think he is too. So you went with Dylan Sampson and Tank Bigsby, also
4
good
running backs in a row.
Values. Yeah, 4 running backs in a row. He feels really good about his wide receivers, even though he only has 4 of them in a 3 wide receiver league. But kind of go ahead and talk about your Dylan Sampson and Tank Bigsby picks there.
I mean, look, it's more about feeling not great about the running backs and trying to make sure that we're good, because it's important to have strong running backs. Obviously, you want to be strong across the board, but I wanted to make sure that if I'm living entirely on gambles, then I need to make sure they're good gambles. And I looked through, and there's still plenty of wide receivers that, at least at values, deep, that I like, and there's shots that I like in other positions, and running back was getting scarce. There's one more guy that I still kind of like that I was torn on taking with the Tank Bigsby pick, but Dylan Sampson, obviously Quinshon Judkins has not signed yet. Jerome Ford is someone who has not proven to be incredibly efficient. He's a fine starter, fine veteran starter, but not incredibly efficient as a running back. Dylan Sampson, regardless of all that, would be someone that you're interested in from a best ball perspective, right? Because he's the big play running back. He's someone who has seen some reps in the receiving game already. He's someone who, incredibly fast. I think probably the second best speed back in this past class. And again, I think the Browns, if they have any hope of doing anything effective this season, are a team that's going to need to be involved with the run and kind of taking the easy passes. And I think that's up Dylan Sampson's alley. And then Tank Bigsby, I think that the running back position there is up for grabs. And Tootin obviously has been out, has been hurt, so hasn't really been in that competition with Bigsby and Etienne. Bigsby was, I think, to me, pretty clearly the best back last year. I'm not the biggest Bigsby guy in the world. I never have been, and I don't think he's anything particularly special, but I think right now he's the better runner than ETN, who might be the better receiver, but ETN had some drops at periods last season. He had some fumbles at periods. He's someone, not that Bigsby hasn't, and that's part of the reason he didn't fully take the role, but I think he's got a shot. He's still young. He still has time with this coaching staff, so to speak, versus ETN's probably a one and done or pretty short. So I like his opportunity at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I've had to call it myself on Bashaw Tootin because since he's been dealing with the hamstring injury, he hasn't really been able to get worked in, and that has proven well for Tank and Travis Etienne. Now, I want to say we're still not quite in August yet, so that ship for me has not quite yet sailed. We still have a lot of training camp to go, but as of right now, the momentum is if you're taking too close to Tank Bigsby, it's kind of probably a bad value pick right now as it stands today. And the Dylan Sampson thing, Quinshon Judkins still isn't under contract. He's still got the whole dispute good thing going. Jerome Ford picked up an injury. Jerome Ford's not going to be the bell cow back. He's going to be at least in the committee, at best, if Quinshon Judkins isn't around. So the Dylan Sampson pick is really, really interesting. That Stefanski system. All right, we're going to have to end the round on this one. So I would not have gone with Tua Tagovailoa otherwise, but I didn't want the best ball bros to get at me and being like, dude, you don't have a single freaking stack on your team. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll take Tua here. Probably not what I would have done.
Yeah, don't qualify like that. You're hyped up about him. Now you got to deal with Dak and Tua's health. I love it.
Hey, it's either my team's either all getting on the injury list week 1 or I'm going all the way to championship. And you know what? That's what best ball is all the way about. I don't care. It's not about the in between. Either finish first or finish last. If you're not first, you're last. That's how it's going to work. I actually have that drop somewhere and I forgot about it. Hey, Tua's only 2 years removed from having a hell of a season himself. But anyway, we got to move on. So Chase, who's your last pick of this draft going to be?
Last pick of this draft, I said I have to take shots at quarterback. I'm going to take a bet on the old man one last time. Hate myself for doing it, but.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers just to get his stack on the last one too.
Yep, with DK Metcalf. Yep,
I'll give you that. So
I hate the wide receivers are left. So yeah, fair.
So Chase goes CeeDee Lamb, Trey McBride, Josh Jacobs, Kyler Murray, Tet McMillan, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Aaron Jones, Bryce Young, Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts, Trey Benson, and Aaron Rodgers with a couple of stacks for running backs and wide receivers. Adam got the number 1 pick. So we got Josh Allen and Drake London and AJ Brown and Caleb Williams and Sam Laporta, Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, Ricky Pearsall, Khalil Shakir, Ramondre Stevenson, Jadon Blue, Dylan Sampson, and Tank Bigsby. We still had 4 more rounds to go. My team was Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, Lab McConkey, Garrett Wilson, Travion Henderson, Dak Prescott, Jalen Waddle, Cam Scatterbo, David Njoku, Dalton Kincaid, Jaden Higgins, J.K. Dobbins, and Tua Tagovailoa. So an interesting mix, I think, from all of us here. And with 4 rounds left, I probably would have went 2 wide receivers, a running back, and one more tight end, most likely, if things fell my way. Chase, what would you have wrapped up your draft with if you could have picked up anything?
Kind of come hell or high water, I was going to have to hammer on wide receivers here for the last bit because I waited so long to take my second. I'm really trusting my top 4 guys to come through for me on a week-by-week basis.
Well, you're not the only one. So, Adam, what were you thinking the last 4 rounds?
Yeah, I had some guys in mind, namely Hollywood Brown, Rashad Bateman, Josh Palmer, just with the stack, Pat Bryant. Cedric Tillman is a guy who I think for best ball is a really nice value, depending on how you feel about that quarterback situation. So those are some of the guys at that position. And then I was looking at potentially Jatavion Sanders, Theo Johnson, and a sneaky, interesting picks in Cole Kmet, Darren Waller towards the end at tight end if I needed to. So those were kind of the guys I was eyeing to take some shots at for depth at those positions.
No, I like that. So, yeah, I was looking at Elijah Arroyo was going to be my sneaky tight end play later on. Sounds like you're getting a lot of run there with that one. My wide receiver, I was going to lean towards just going all in on Houston and going with Jalen Noel. I think he does overtake Christian Kirk at some point during the season with his explosive ability just to take another shot there. Not in love with the wide receivers that are left. And then I probably went with 2 running backs because I love the handcuffs on the board. I mean, there's Jalen Wright's on the board right now. Roshan Johnson's on the board. Blake Corum's on the board. DJ Giddens is on the board. And those are all handcuffs that I'm looking for even in redraft leagues that were still there. So those are kind of some of the values that we would have looked at how we've been able to finish the draft, but we do need to wrap up the show. Guys, we're going to be back next week. We're getting in the rankings. So we're going the best 5, bust 5, sleeper 5 quarterbacks, getting off with that series here to finish out August. We'll be back next week. Make sure you download Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app and go to the Fantasy Sports Advice YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. And guys, make sure you're going to the Expo next week because you're going to see us there all weekend long. Have a good one. We'll see you then. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.